universe needs us to make a practice of silence. So whether that's in the car, whether it's walking to the bus stop or the train in the morning, whatever it is, allow those moments of sacred space. And we've also got to stop limiting the universe, because we have these views that people who live in cities and towns, or perhaps somehow those of us who live in these spaces, and I've lived in big cities most of my life, somehow they're less spiritual. Really? Do we think the universe that has flung whole cosmoses into being are limited by big cities? I don't think so. What are we doing here? In the beating heart of London, of the UK. Spirit is everywhere. And it is waiting for us to be ready to be light bearers in the space. And that goes for our jobs as well. If we're going to walk in wonderment, then we need to be able to take that energy of possibilities and ability to connect with others into the workspace. And yes, we may be working for a corporation. That doesn't make us any less spiritual. In fact, we might be holding the light for a lot of people who are a bit lost. And that can be advanced spiritual practice. So what we're talking about, and we've got to remember that wonderment is available to us anywhere because we are wired for wonderment. So how do we make this work practically in the busy kind of urban lives that many of us lead? Well, the first thing is to actually start to spend time in the sacred spaces in our cities. And you think sacred spaces, or does that mean it's got to be a cathedral or something? No. Where are the places where you live that uplift you, that seriously uplift you? It might be a little park, it might be a quirky cafe, I don't know what it is for you. But the fact that it uplifts you means there is a sacred vibe for you there, a living vibe. So it's important, if we want to live these uplifted lives, that we actually spend time in places that are good for us. The beauty of the universe is that it can make use of even a few minutes. We don't have to spend 3 hours there necessarily. If we can, great. And then what we're starting to do is to ensoul the places we inhabit, our homes, our workplaces, the little park down the road, because we feel grateful for that opportunity. And then we can expand the possibilities of sacred. So I live in Sydney, which is why I have this funny twang. So when I'm meeting with my beautiful, mainly soul sisters, I have some lovely soul brothers as well, we don't just have a coffee or a pasta. It's a sacred coffee. It's a sacred pasta. And everybody says it now, we say it to each other. What are we signalling? We're signalling that in that moment, it is sacred being with this person I love. So automatically we are flooding that space with delight and all the other things we're talking about. Is this making sense? We've got more to go. So we mustn't doubt this. And one of my sacred places in Sydney is a beautiful beach. And it has these amazing old fig trees that are a bit like the fairy trees that you see in pictures of old. Beautiful roots and everything, and I love this space. And I've been going for years, and selfishly I love it in winter because there aren't many people there. And I got talking to this elderly lady, or she seemed elderly at the time, she was probably my age now, years back. And she said to me, "You come here a lot, Maggie, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." I said, "It's my sacred place." And she smiled. She said, "Do you know that the Aboriginal people call this beach the healing place?" Now, I didn't know that consciously, but my heart, my radar knew that. And what I've learned to do with those spaces then is to bless them when I leave, so that I am tending the sacred energies there. And this is how we start to ensoul the places we live, to uplift them. So, one of the things that's it's important for us all to do is to start to connect with nature. So what I'd love you to do after we've been here is to actually find a space close to you in nature and start to spend time there. It might only be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it might only be a tiny little park. But through the trees there, the bushes, the nettles, the whatever, we can start to connect in profoundly with the Great Mother. And how do we do this? We do this by starting to take note of the different living things there in the way we would a person, to start to appreciate a tree, a bush, to notice what's happening to them when it rains, when it's dry, when it's autumn. And what we are doing then is we are connecting in with this living spirit of that tree, that bush, whatever. And once we start to do that, we can then start to communicate. And this is where it gets very exciting. Because there's nothing in the world that is inanimate. If we look at quantum physics, we are part of the magnificent dance of atoms, the most exquisite divine dance of atoms. There is nothing in this space here, including the exhibition space itself, that is not living and moving. And I had the privilege a few years back getting to know a wonderful British druid who is now dead, and he used to build standing stones around the world. And he used to go to quarries, find the standing stones. They're like, we're talking a ton each, these stones. And he said rocks are actually very shy. They much prefer to lie in the earth. But he said, it's amazing. He said, when you can explain to these rocks that there is a sacred purpose for them, things change. And he told me about this one day. They were making a standing stones, and there was this one huge rock, and they were using, you know, the logs like they used to do in ancient times, and it would not budge. So they stopped and they did a group meditation explaining that there was a sacred purpose to this standing stone. And Ivan said to me, you wouldn't believe it, Maggie, but he said it almost shot into the hole by itself. There's nothing that is not alive. So how do we work with nature